Demons! Oh boy, where do we even begin with the horde of demonic forces and evil entities that have plagued the horror cinematic landscape since time immemorial. Now, it's safe to say that there is a hell of a lot to get through, and after the proverbial cork was shot out of the demon bottle way back when in 1973 with William Friedkin's The Exorcist, horror cinema has been rife with more possession movies and demonic investigations than you can cram into a well-worn Necronomicon. And thankfully for us, they all make for some particularly terrifying horror content, so let's jump into it, shall we? Hello horror fans, what's going on, and once again welcome back to the Scariest channel on YouTube, Top 5 Scary Videos. As per usual, I'll be your horror host Jack Finch, as today we curiously take a look at the top 5 scariest demons from horror movies. Roll the clip.
La plume de ma tante.
How long are you planning to stay in Reagan?
Until she rots and lies stinking in the earth.
For the curious amongst you, of course, that scene was the demonically possessed Reagan McNeil under her affliction of the demonic overlord himself, Pazuzu, because of course it is. This is a scary demons in horror movies list, and we have to pay tithe to the forefathers of demonic horror cinema, else we'll be running the risk of ticking off more tumultuous entities than our insurance can cover. So yeah, better safe than sorry, right? Of course, William Friedkin's The Exorcist is our most honourable of honourable mentions, but you know what, we like to keep things fresh over here at Top 5 Scary Videos, so hopefully a few of these horrifying entries will surprise you. I mean that in a good way. Hopefully. Oh, and also there may be a few spoilers in this particular list, so don't say I didn't warn you. Kicking off at number 5, Bathsheba Sherman. Horrifying Bathsheba Sherman, first depicted in James Wan's The Conjuring back in 2013. Now, throughout the events of the film, the entity of Bathsheba plagues Roger and Carolyn Perron along with their 5 daughters, Andrea, Nancy, Christine, Cindy and April, after they moved into an old dilapidated farmhouse out in Harrisville, Rhode Island. Not only did Bathsheba turn hand claps into a terrifying horror device, but it was also in the relentless attention to authenticity where this particular demonic entity truly shined, framed by the notorious paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. And that's when we were exactly where James Wan wanted us with this film, because perhaps more so than any other demonic possession film, it kind of felt real, because it kind of was. Loosely based on the true story of the haunting in Harrisville, Bathsheba Sherman was the malevolent spirit of an alleged devil-worshipping witch back in the mid-1800s. As the legend goes, Bathsheba was a direct relative of Mary Town Easty, one of the many women executed for alleged witchcraft in the Salem witch trials of 1692. In 1863, Bathsheba married a rich farmer, whereunder she took the surname Sherman and gave birth to his child. When that child was just a week old though, her husband caught her attempting to sacrifice her baby to the devil, and when she was exposed, Bathsheba climbed to the top of the tree outside the Harrisville home, proclaimed her love for the demonic overlord, cursing all those who would take her land in the future, and hung herself from the branches. There her demonic reign began, and there we have The Conjuring. Yeah. Either way, Bathsheba is pretty damn terrifying. Next up at number 4, Deborah Logan. But in actual fact, we have to give credit where credit is due, because when we say Deborah Logan, we actually mean Henry Desjardins, the malevolent entity that is the true antagonist of 2014's The Taking of Deborah Logan, written and directed by Adam Robital, which, as a side note, is an awesome horror film, and in particular one of the most well-crafted found footage horrors of the decade. The pain and suffering comes from 2 separate directions for the poor Deborah Logan, as she has been afflicted by the terrible disease Alzheimer's, whilst also being paranormally puppeted by an evil French physician, Henry Desjardins, who uses Logan as a means to return to our plane. As the film goes on to elaborate, prior to the events of this film, Henry Desjardins mysteriously disappeared after a series of cannibalistic ritualized murders of 4 young girls, after which we discovered that Desjardins was attempting to recreate an ancient demonic ritual that would thus make him immortal. Also, my favourite part of this film comes after that particular revelation, where Gavin, the camera operator that serves as the pilot for this found footage documentary, instantly leaves after hearing that particularly terrifying information. As in, we never see him again. Gavin gets one sniff of cannibals and demonic ritualistic sacrifice, and he's straight out of Dodge like a bat out of hell. I'm not exactly sure why, but in an otherwise genuinely terrifying film, that particular attention to detail made this film so worthwhile. Well, other than the fact that Deborah Logan is freaking nightmare fuel. Swinging in at number 3, Paimon. It's always bad news when you've got a demonic cult in your treehouse, isn't it? And it's even worse news when that particular demonic cult has just used you as a vessel to usher forth their demonic overlord. Now obviously, spoiler alert for those of you that haven't yet seen Ari Aster's resounding 2018 instant horror classic Hereditary, but if you haven't, stop what you're doing, go and watch it, and then come back so we can discuss the demonic implications of King Paimon. Hereditary is a terrifying film. But what makes this particular demonic entity deserve a place on our list is in the even more terrifying implications of his nefarious reign. Perhaps more so than any other demonic horror film, Paimon seems to cut above the rest, despite the fact that, well, we never once see him. And therein lies the rub. You see, whilst Hereditary is very much a film about a demonic entity, it's a film about how one single source of evil can affect the lives of many, many people. Hence, you know, the demonic naked cult in the treehouse. The fact that Paimon has an entire chain of command that serves to manifest his evil will on our earthly plane is a concept that has for the most part been entirely overlooked by the genre. I mean, you could argue that The Omen and its sequels were the original progenitor, but I'm not entirely sure whether the number of the beast is equally as terrifying as Paimon searching for a host and making people behead themselves with piano wire in the process. The demon Paimon is the embodiment of despair and hopelessness exemplified within the events of 2018's Hereditary, and in some ways it may be the most visceral depiction of demonic possession in horror. Coming in at number 2, the Gemini Killer.
Gemini is dead.
No, I am not! I'm alive! I go on! I breathe! Look at me! Look at me!
And I'd just like to preface this point with the fact that William Peter Blatty's The Exorcist 3 is the rightful spiritual successor to William Friedkin's 1973 classic, The Exorcist, and in its own right is perhaps one of the most satisfying sequels / third entries when held up to most horror franchises. I mean, it should be, given the fact that William Peter Blatty was the author of the original novels, and this film is very much him setting the record straight. And this time, rather than the Pazuzu and Reagan McNeil show, this time we get a whole host of demonic possessions and a whole new, terrifying paranormal concept. In the events of the film, Lieutenant Kinderman is on the case of a murderer investigating a series of gruesome murders that seem to fit the modus operandi of the renowned serial killer James the Gemini Veneman, played by the awesome Brad Dourif, who, strangely enough, was executed 17 years prior to the events of this film. Not Brad Dourif, I mean his character. And well, yeah, you guessed it, the Gemini killer was so damn evil in his mortal life that his soul was sentenced to eternal damnation to remain in a state of torment as a demonic entity, and as it turns out, the demonic spirit of the Gemini killer just so happens to take possession of a very familiar figure, Father Damien Karras, one of the 2 priests that oversee Reagan McNeil's exorcism during the events of the first film. As it turns out though, Pazuzu is still kicking about, and the demonic overlord has taken the Gemini killer's entity under his wing, using his power of possession to enact his revenge on Father Karras, keeping him in a state of eternal pain and inner conflict. Based on Brad Dourif's performance alone, without the fantastically horrifying narrative of this film, the Gemini killer is one of the most unnerving demonic entities in cinema, and rightly so. And finally, coming in at our number 1 spot, The Stranger.
悪魔。お前悪魔だ。
And this may be a little bit of a surprise to some of you, but just stick with me. And also note that if you haven't seen the incredible 2016 South Korean horror The Wailing, written and directed by Na Hong-jin, then please do, because it's awesome and also a true demonstration on how to pull off an utterly unnerving horror movie purely by characterization alone. The truth of the matter is though, there are so many conflicting forces of evil at play throughout the events of The Wailing that on first viewing it's incredibly difficult to decipher exactly which evil to be afraid of. There's Mew Myung, aka No Name, the woman in white, who may perhaps be an all-powerful god of the land or a malevolent witch that uses people as playthings. Then there's Il Guang, the drifter shaman that seems to have all the answers, but its most unsettling character, alongside many other worthy evil entities, zombies included, is the Stranger, who just so happens to be the devil himself. Maybe. There's a lot going on with this film. However, the most terrifying aspect of the Stranger, hands down, is the fact that although he very much is possessed by the devil, the evil crow spirit, the Tengu of Buddhist mythology, and all of those things combined, what we see throughout the first few acts of this film is the human side of him trying to cling on to whichever morsel of his own mind that is still left behind. The Stranger is very much a tormented victim of this demon, and it's through the extraneous lengths that his human side goes to try and cling on to life and hope that makes it that much worse for us to see as viewers. We don't know who to trust in this film, that's a given, but as those few closing scenes roll around, it becomes very clear that all hope has been extinguished and evil has won. And it doesn't matter if it's a demonic horror movie or not, that's where the real fear lies.
In at number 5 we have Lipstick Face Demon from Insidious. To quote Lorraine in Insidious, "I went into Dalton's room. There was something in there with him. It was standing there in the corner. I asked it, 'Who are you?' And it said it was a visitor. I said, 'What do you want?' It said, Dalton. I can still hear the voice. Released back in 2010 and directed by James Wan, Insidious is a supernatural horror film and the first installment in the Insidious franchise. The story centers on a couple whose son inexplicably enters a comatose state and becomes a vessel for ghosts in an astral dimension who want to inhabit his body. The lipstick-faced demon, also known as the man with fire on his face, the red-faced man, Sixtas, or simply the demon, this is the overall antagonist of the Insidious film series. It is a demonic resident of the Further that seeks to bring pain and chaos to the world of the living by possessing a human body. In the film, the lipstick-faced demon targets Dalton Lambert, the aforementioned child who has the supernatural ability to astral project. The demon thus lures him into the Further and manages to capture him and chain him to the floor, where he was presumably tortured. Though he never speaks, the demon is capable of speaking, as confirmed by Lorraine. The demon keeps Dalton close by in the Further, which seems to be a theatre-like chamber. He is malevolent, ruthless, and cruel, and never gives up on his goal to take a child's soul. Appearance-wise, he is absolutely terrifying. He is tall, muscular with fur on his legs, stark cloven hooves, and has a devilish face. He has long spidery claws at the end of his fingers and has large demonic yellow-gold eyes with black pupils. But of course, his most famous feature is his terrifying red face. Honestly, hate this dude. Coming in at number 4, we have Pazuzu from The Exorcist. Pazuzu is the main antagonist in the Exorcist horror novels as well as the films. The Exorcist, of course, tells the story of Regan, a young girl who becomes possessed by the demon Pazuzu after playing with a Ouija board. And of course, we all know what happens after that. Head spinning, crucifix stabbing, and bed shaking. Pazuzu is a powerful demon who was based loosely on a mythological figure native to Babylonian culture, where it was considered the king of wind demons and the son of Babylonian god Hanbi. Now, in the novel and the film adaptation, Pazuzu successfully possessed Regan after she played with the Ouija board, appearing to her in the form of Captain Howdy, turning her into a hideous vessel for it to taunt and abuse. Pazuzu forces Regan to do unspeakable acts of horror, including spinning her head 180 degrees and vomiting buckets of pea soup. Now, in mythology, Pazuzu is the demon of the southwest wind, known for bringing famine during dry seasons and locusts during rainy seasons. Pazuzu was invoked in apotropic amulets which combat the powers of his rival, the malicious goddess Lamashtu, who was believed to cause harm to mother and child during childbirth. Coming in at number 3, we have Paimon from Hereditary. First and foremost, Hereditary is a 2018 supernatural horror film written and directed by Ari Aster in his feature film directorial debut. When the matriarch of the Graham family passes away, her daughter and grandchildren begin to unravel cryptic and increasingly terrifying secrets about their ancestry, trying to outrun the sinister fate they have inherited. And one of those sinister secrets is Paimon. King Paimon is a powerful demon who is one of the great kings of hell. His worshippers want him to manifest in the mortal world so he can make them wealthy and knowledgeable. Now, Paimon was summoned by the ancestors of the Graham family, and now they are left to fight off the hold he has on the children. While inhabiting the body of Charlie, one of the children, King Paimon is shown to be confused and disconnected from reality. Though he has a cult of devout lifelong followers, he himself is not shown to seek a life on Earth. In actuality, he is out of place and scared by what he sees through the eyes of Charlie. Now, according to certain texts, King Paimon, in his own form, is said to be a human-looking entity who wears a great crown and rides a dromedary. He is preceded by a whole host of ghouls playing trumpets and demons roaring, heralding his arrival. His face is feminine but body masculine. In Aberlin, King Paimon's powers include knowledge of past and future events, clearing up doubts, making spirits appear, creating visions, acquiring and dismissing servant spirits, reanimating the dead for several years, flight, remaining underwater indefinitely, and general abilities to make all kinds of things and all sorts of people and armor appear at the behest of the magician. Coming in at number 2, we have the Cenobites, Hellraiser. To quote the Hell Priest Pinhead, Cenobites are, I quote, explorers in the further regions of experience, demons to some, angels to others. The Cenobites hail from the work of Clive Barker, including the Hellbound Heart as well as the 9 Hellraiser movies. They are demons who can reach Earth's reality through a schism in time and space, which is opened and closed using certain unearthly artifacts. The most common of these artifacts is the puzzle box called the Lament Configuration. Now, these dudes are absolutely terrifying. To quote Clive Barker in The Hellbound Heart, why then was he so distressed to set eyes upon them? Was it the scars that covered every inch of their bodies, the flesh cosmetically punctured, sliced and infibulated, then dusted down with ash? Was it the smell of vanilla they brought with them, the sweetness of which did little to disguise the stench beneath? Or was it that as the light grew and he scanned them more closely, he saw nothing of joy or even humanity? In their maimed faces, only desperation and an appetite that made his bowels ache to be voided. Cenobites all have horrific mutilations and or body piercings, and wear fetishistic black leather clothing. Now, technically, Cenobites are extra-dimensional beings who are brainwashed into torturing humans for all of eternity in the labyrinth. They were once human, with the exception of Angelique, the daughter of the demon god Leviathan. Now, back to the aforementioned puzzle box. When a person solves one of the many boxes, a small group of Cenobites will appear. If Leviathan believes the person is worthy to become a Cenobite, they are taken to hell to be made a Cenobite in a Cenobite transformation chamber, operated by the engineer. The procedure breaks the mind completely to the point that the transformed victim is completely void of their memories in their past life. However, if the person is not deemed worthy, the human will either still be taken to hell, where they will spend all eternity in prison, or they will be destroyed on the spot. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have Deadites, the Evil Dead. Originating in the Evil Dead, the Deadites are demonic zombies and spirits controlled by the powers of the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, as well as the Kandarian demon. They have the power to possess the living as well as the dead and exist throughout the Evil Dead series. These demons have the capabilities to possess other people's bodies and consume their souls for a hobby. Aside from possessing the living, Deadites in spirit forms are also capable of tossing around the living as if they were nothing. Now, there are several methods in which a Deadite can take over a host: violent/lethal attacks from another Deadite, the touch of evil, a bite/scratch, or a Necronomicon spell. The latter can be found with the Necronomicon and causes instantaneous possession without the need for summoning the Kandarian demon. Other powers include enhanced strength, levitation, superhuman durability, shapeshifting, super speed, as well as hive mind. Now, following possession over a host, Deadites will then manipulate the body of the host to reflect a more inhuman appearance, usually something grotesque and terrifying. Now, what makes these suckers number 1 on our list is the simple fact that there is no real way to destroy a Deadite, other than destroying the host, which in turn sends the Deadite spirit back to the mirror dimension, where it will wait until another opportunity arises for it to possess another living creature. However, you can also dismember a Deadite via the separation of all 4 limbs and the head from the torso, which will also get the job done. However, should you not remove the head, it is possible that the head itself can continue to be active and still be able to control the body's movements. Coming in at number 5, we have Paranormal Activity. Alright, just hear me out. I know everyone has differing opinions on Paranormal Activity, but I truly believe it is an effective demonic horror movie that has a lasting legacy. Released in 2007 and directed by Oren Peli, the movie centers on a young couple, Katie and Micah, who are haunted by a supernatural presence in their home. They then decide to set up a camera to document what is haunting them, and it's not what they expect. It's something demonic that is hellbent on possessing Katie. Film critics James Berardinelli and Roger Ebert each awarded it 3.5 stars out of a maximum of 4 stars. Ebert stated, I quote, "It illustrates one of my favorite points, that silence and waiting can be more entertaining than frantic, fast-cutting and berserk FX. For extended periods here, nothing at all is happening, and believe me, you won't be bored. And ain't that the truth? The movie is a way of lingering. You're waiting throughout the duration for something to go down. You watch as the couple sleep, you see shadows, doors move, and gusts of wind. However, things take a turn when Katie is dragged from the bed in the night and pulled down the hallway by her ankle by an unknown presence. And from that point on, the movie descends into an utter nightmare for the couple. The fact that we witness everything through a static camera is what makes the movie so effective and so damn terrifying. There's not a second of acting, but more so reacting, and we watch on as this supposed real-life couple goes through hell and back. Not to mention, the movie has one of the most intense and unexpected endings, which smoothly sets up Paranormal Activity 2. Bloody Disgusting ranked the film 16th in their list of the top 20 horror films of the decade, with the article saying, I quote, "Peli deserves props for milking the maximum amount of tension out of the spare modern setting. An ordinary cookie-cutter tract home in San Diego. Doesn't sound very scary, but Pele manages to make it terrifying. If you aren't white-knuckling your armrest at least once or twice while watching it, you probably don't have a pulse. Coming in at number 4, The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Directed by Scott Derrickson and released back in 2005, The Exorcism of Emily Rose is a supernatural horror movie loosely based on the story of Annalise Michel and tells the story of Reverend Moore, who performs an exorcism on a girl believed to be possessed by demons. The prosecutor argues that the girl suffered from schizophrenia, however, Moore's lawyer has a different opinion. Now, what makes this movie so great is that despite being a PG-13 movie, it's still packed with horrifying thrills from start to finish, with one particular scene lingering with moviegoers for years to come. We all know the scene, the one where Jennifer Carpenter's boyfriend wakes up in the night only to see his girlfriend horrifically contorted on the floor. I still think about that to this day. It's disgusting. Anyway, I digress. The movie also manages to be a courtroom drama with a twinge of the supernatural that adds some flavor to the mix. Roger Ebert gave the movie 3 out of 4 stars, describing it as, I quote, intriguing and perplexing, writing that the screenplay is intelligent and open to occasional refreshing wit. In 2006, the Chicago Film Critics Association listed the film in the top 100 scariest films ever made, ranking it at number 86, with Jennifer Carpenter winning the Best Writing Performance at the MTV Movie Awards during that same year. Coming in at 3, we have Jeepers Creepers. We've talked about Jeepers Creepers on this channel a few times recently, however it's back again with a well-earned place on our list. Directed by Victor Salva and released back in 2001, Jeepers Creepers follows 2 siblings played by Justin Long and Gina Phillips, who encounter a demon while on a road trip in rural Florida. While driving through rural Florida en route home, the siblings pass a dirty van, which later turns out to be the van of a demonic killer, who is hellbent on hunting down the siblings after they catch the creature, dumping a body down a secret chute. Now, the movie takes its title from the 1930 song Jeepers Creepers by Johnny Mercer and Harry Warren. The song plays throughout the movie, taking on a more diabolical tone than I'm sure it was intended to. Not to mention, it is a prelude to catastrophe that is soon to come. Now, the movie does falter the more it progresses, with the scarier moments occurring in the early stages of the film before descending into a shoot-by-numbers monster movie. Despite that though, Jeepers Creepers has a lasting legacy, and is a movie myself and many horror lovers still return to today. Kevin Thomas of the LA Times wrote that the film, I quote, has the scariest opening sequence of any horror picture in recent memory, but becomes an amusing horror comedy, spooky and jolting but too literally preposterous to regain its initial aura of suspense. Stephen Holden of the New York Times called it, I quote, a cannier than average teen horror movie that disintegrates into a shoot-by-numbers monster hunt. Despite its mixed reviews, the movie sparked 2 sequels, Jeepers Creepers 2 in 2003 and Jeepers Creepers 3 in 2017. The second was good, the third we just don't discuss. Coming in at 2, we have Jennifer's Body. This is a personal favourite of mine, and like a fine wine has aged well with time. Directed by Karen Kusama and written by Diablo Cody, Jennifer's Body was released back in 2009 and stars Megan Fox, Amanda Seyfried, J.K. Simmons and Adam Brody. Megan Fox portrays a demonically possessed high school girl who kills her male classmates, with her best friend Seyfried striving to stop her. Jennifer's Body has a familiar horror flair, but it has notable quirks, which are thanks to writer Diablo Cody, the Academy Award nominated writer/director behind movies such as Juno. The movie seems very simple at first glance. Jennifer is a popular cheerleader who everyone loves, while Needy is a shy virginal follower. Jennifer becomes possessed by a demon who is hungry for human flesh, and Needy must step up and try to keep her best friend under control. The movie successfully managed to go from a box office flop to a cult classic and a favourite among horror movie lovers, and specifically demon horror movie lovers. The movie was essentially dead on arrival, but somehow it's staying power, with it garnering new fans each and every year. However, I should state that Jennifer's Body was always a good movie. It's only now that people are learning to appreciate it. Roger Ebert was a fan of the movie, dubbing it, I quote, Twilight for boys, and stating that as a movie about a flesh-eating cheerleader, it's better than it has to be. All in all, we owe Jennifer's Body an apology, because it turned out to be one of the greatest demon horror movies of all time. Quote me on that. Finally, coming in at number 1, Drag Me to Hell. Now, this movie is great and highly underrated in my opinion. Directed by one of the kings of horror, Sam Raimi, and written by his older brother, Ivan, Drag Me to Hell was released back in 2009 and follows a loan officer played by Alison Lohman, who, because she has to prove to her boss that she can make the hard decisions, chooses not to extend an elderly woman's mortgage. In retaliation, the woman places a curse on the loan officer that, after 3 days of escalating torment, will plunge her into the depths of hell to burn for eternity. Lovely. Now the torment Loman suffers is reminiscent of Evil Dead, with beatings and gore that quite literally, spoiler alert, result in her being dragged into hell by a demon. The movie manages to offer the same kind of gory and disturbing fun as the Evil Dead films from the 80s, and successfully manages to be humorous while absolutely terrifying and disgusting. It is a movie that you will be laughing and cheering throughout, while also screaming and shouting. The movie is a roller coaster ride from start to finish, kicking off with an old gypsy woman losing it at Alison Loman, to her attacking her in a car and losing her dentures only to attack Loman's chin with her toothless mouth. It's all very bizarre, but exciting and relentless. The film heavily relies on shock effects like the mouth scene instead of blood, and Raimi pulls this off to perfection. Bloody Disgusting gave the film 4.5 stars out of 5, with the review calling it, I quote, "quite simply the most perfect horror film I've seen in a long while. It's a blast and moved quickly from start to finish, and is well on its way to becoming an immediate classic. Fans have been desperately hoping for a sequel for 10 years now, however Raimi doesn't have a story in mind. I quote, somebody had a good story. I don't have a story because in my mind the character got killed and worse, so I didn't know how to proceed with the sequel." Well, there we have it. Do you guys agree with our list? With any demon movies that we missed? Which decade would you like us to cover next? Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below. Okay, and now it is time for bloopers. I feel like I'm Keegan in this shit. And yeah, can you just like be my assistant and just hand me things? I'm gonna take pauses. And this Leatherface plushie? Is that what they're called? This Leatherface plush. Oh, you're in. This Leatherface. This. me. Editors, just do what you can with that. That was literally so long.
Can I take this back?
Yeah, and here, take Ash. Thanks. Be careful with him. He's coming home with me. The movie centers on a young couple, Katie and... I need to burp. Film critic James Berardinelli. Film critic James Berardinelli. Film critics James Jeepers Creepers follows two siblings played... I'm just having a hard time today. And stating that as a movie about a flesh-eating cheerleader, it's better than it has to be. Just read, you know? Just read. I quote Twilight... F***ing hell. Because it turned out to be one of the greatest demon horror movies of all time. I just can't speak. Quote me on that, if you can, because I can't even f***ing quote myself, can I? I'm having a hard time speaking. Because in my mind the character got... Are you alright? Because... Everyone's just creeping around. Everyone stop creeping. You're all being weird. Editors, I'm sorry for that. Okay. Before I go though, I just want to respond to a few comments from one of our last videos. Top 5 scary monsters from North Korea. Matthew Boyajan said, please, top 5 werewolf urban legends. I pitched it. If it happens, it happens. You're welcome. Jackal Review said, that first one about the sun and the moon eating dogs sounds familiar. Was it nicked from Norse mythology? I don't think it was nicked, I just think urban legends all sound the same, because they're not real. They're just fake stories. Gabrielle Smith said, how about top 5 evil world domination plans Lucy can come up with? I would need more than top 5, I'd need top 20. Top 20 at least. Lee Kitchen said, top 5 Lucy insults. I mean, you're just going strong with these, aren't you? Top 5 Lucy insults. I'll pitch it. Don't think it'll happen. Edmund Williams said, what about top 5 scary superstitions from around the world? I pitched it, and it might happen. Spoiler alert. It is. Steve Cass said, I must be dreaming Lucy doing a top 5 twice in one day. I hope I never wake up. Well, sadly you will wake up because today's a different day, isn't it? And on that note, if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another scary vid. And until next time, see you later.